Alright peeps, I've got a video on an upcoming MMORPG that is actually quite unique to all the other MMOs available. Oh my gosh, people are still innovating in this genre. Heck yeah, that's what I'm talking about, and that's why I wanted to spotlight this upcoming MMO. I reached out to the developers because I found out about this game and wanted to share it with you guys. And they were awesome and supplied me with an early build of the game, so it goes without saying, but everything you see so far will understandably look rough around the edges. But it gave me a taste of the standout mechanics implemented. And on top of that, I was able to ask the developers some questions after the play session, so you guys can get some more info right from the source. The game is called Destiny's Sword, and it's an MMO that's not just exploring fairly uncharted territory in its genre, but also in gaming as a whole. Destiny's Sword is pretty much like if The Sims met a little bit of XCOM and whoop-pow! It's also an MMO. And The Sims in this game have way more emotional baggage than The Sims in The Sims. And this emotional baggage originates from A, our characters being human, and B, from the state of the galaxy our characters inhabit, which happens to be in the middle of a big-ass war. Resources are up for grabs, power-hungry empires are ruining the peace. Your once peaceful land is getting ravaged for all it's worth. Are you gonna lay down and take that shit? I don't think so. It's time to lock and load. So yeah, I'm pretty hyped about this game. Your character, along with a full crew of people, are responsible for managing your ship and its weapons and technology, as well as your own character and their technology that they bring into combat. But on an even more intimate level, you are responsible for a squad of soldiers, all of which have their own struggles, whether it is physical or even emotional. It's not just a typical game where you just slap gear on your squad mates and they're pretty much good to go. And this is the big emphasis of Destiny's Sword, to not only address the struggles a real-life soldier might face as a result of combat, but to actually base the gameplay around it. Your squad mates are as susceptible to death on the battlefield as they are to an endless list of mental inhibitors, such as crippling depression, or PTSD, stands for post-traumatic stress disorder. I know a thing or two about the medical field, not really. And they can get these conditions from the things they've seen in battle or the injuries they obtained from it. They can also suffer from fatigue and exhaustion from the toll of this lifestyle. There's the potential for addiction to drugs caused by an attempt to ease the aforementioned issues, or stress from external factors like family back home. Maybe a family member passed away, or the war has spread to this squad member's homeland and it's serving as a distraction, which affects how he or she will perform in combat. And then there's even smaller things that can happen, like a dispute between squad mates, which will once again affect how they perform in the field. According to an article about the game on VentureBeat, an example of this is some soldiers may become too scared during a fight, leaving them stunned and unable to act for a while. Now obviously, if you cheered this guy up before the fight happened, he wouldn't be cowering there like a pansy. I'm just kidding, I'd be fainting all over the damn place if I had to go into combat, just ragdoll flopping around the battlefield like the dude from QWOP. I ain't about to talk shit, I'm a pussy. Pretty much any issue you can think of that you'd worry a real-life soldier might get, the Destiny's Sword devs are aiming to have all of it in this game. And as squad leader, it's your job to be a little selfless, like my boy Commander Shepard in Mass Effect. And go around making sure you spend time addressing your squad mates' problems so you can achieve the best performance out of them. And the best part is you're always at risk of losing these squad mates. They can die, so you may develop an emotional attachment to them, go through half the game with them, and work out their problems one-on-one just for them to be killed. Why did I say this is the best part? It's not because I'm messed up or something, believe it or not. It's because this means Destiny's Sword keeps you extremely invested in the game, where you are getting to know your squad mates almost hesitantly because you know you might lose them. But regardless, you're building a connection with the troops that you command. And from the limited gameplay I've experienced, it's not a chore to do so, because their dialogue is pretty fleshed out and interesting to read. For an MMO trying to address such sensitive and personal topics, I like what I've seen so far in terms of my ability to make the situation better or worse. The dialogue options I get to choose from will generally evoke some sort of emotional response, for better or worse, from the squad member I'm talking to. And it is very possible that the player can make the situation much worse, or even push the squad mate to the point where they'll lash out at your character. Two Dogs Games, the developers for this, are using what they call the insight engine to fuel the outcomes of these interactions. And to take a quote from the site, the insight engine tracks the evolution of characters' personality and emotions over time based on their gameplay experiences, player decisions and actions, and the meaningful events that happen in their daily lives. Major traumatic events may even alter the underlying personality of a character. From the hour-long demo I got to play, it was very clear to me that this part of the game is a huge focus, as it should be if any game tries to incorporate the topic of mental health at all. And I am so excited to see how this game mechanic turns out, because from my limited time with the game, I was already really caught up in the social system, because any dialogue option I chose wasn't clear cut. These options did not make it clear whether I would invoke a good or bad reaction in the person I was talking to. Just like how in real life, if you're talking to someone who is emotional, you might say something you think is right, but they don't respond to it how you thought they would. For those of you that have a girlfriend, ever, you know what I'm talking about. Unless the words coming out of my mouth are, "Let's go shopping, baby," there's a 98.9% chance that what I think will help the situation will not help the situation. Be smart about this, boys. Walk into that mall with your head high, knowing that you just avoided getting put in the doghouse today. I mean, sure, you're a little bitch, but hey, I'm happy to be a bitch if she keeps doing that thing with her tongue, you know what I'm saying? And some dialogue options you choose might have a short-lasting impression with the character or a really long one. So because of how in touch you need to be with your squad, you have a lot of responsibilities during the downtime between fights. You'll be on your ship and you can be improving any number of things. There weren't many features available in the build I played, but it looks like there's plenty of ship upgrade options. I'm curious to see what these upgrades affect, as so far the ship functionality seems to be more like the Normandy in Mass Effect. It's kind of where the downtime and social interactions happen with NPCs. But aside from ship upgrades, this is where you can talk to your crewmates, edit your guns and their upgrades, as well as upgrades for other combat-specific utilities like upgrading your combat mech. And people be getting shot up in this bitch. I mean, we're in a war after all. And you need to patch up your squad mates after tough fights, assuming you did your job and they survived. So there's a medical bay to address these injuries, and injuries come in all forms, so you may need to have the right type of medic on board to increase the chances of repairing that damage. Otherwise, you can literally lose a squad mate on the operating table. And lastly, sometimes you need to take a step back from your role of brutally slaughtering your enemies and bathing in their blood to take on more of a party planner role. Twerking, not optional. But you need to find ways to keep morale high, and there are different options for doing so, like holding a party and letting everyone de-stress from their day-to-day. And as far as I can tell from the game manual, yes, they gave me a game manual. I haven't seen a game manual since I was a wee lad about 4 feet tall. Bonus points, Two Dogs Games. Anyways, as far as I can tell from this, there is a lot more that's going to be added to all of these mechanics to add more depth to the experience. But as you can see, there's a lot of team management involved, which I love because I can already tell the immersion will be strong with this one as a direct result of how much we have in our control. Now, the last thing I'll talk about before getting into the interview questions is the stuff that I'm a little more concerned about, because it's obvious a ton of effort is going into what will separate Destiny's Sword from other MMOs, which is pretty much everything I've said already, but what I'm curious about is the combat system, as well as how they are going to make this game an MMO. While playing the demo, it was very short-lived, so it's not a good indication of the final game, but I spent probably around 50 minutes of my time on the ship talking to NPCs and going through dialogue options, and maybe 8 minutes in combat where there were 3 available missions. So based off of this, and it may be a silly thing to base the game off of, seems like Destiny's Sword is predominantly about NPC interactions over combat. There isn't a problem with this, but I fail to see how they are going to make this an MMORPG when it seems like so much emphasis is placed on time you're alone on your ship and doing things there. And on top of that, the ground scenarios I have played didn't have a lot of depth to them just yet. Combat essentially boils down to you casting abilities on your squad as well as the enemies, but you don't actually have any control over who your squad shoots at, where they should be positioned on the battlefield, and so on. The fights so far have always just taken place on a pretty plain looking strip of grassland where your squad and the enemies just face each other in a square formation. After playing the first boss encounter, I can see how this system that at first seemed far too basic can actually get pretty hectic in tough fights, but ultimately I felt like the combat could use some more depth. So these are the most pressing questions I chose to focus on when I talked to the devs, because while the social system seems like it's heading in a really cool direction, players are going to want all parts of the game to be engaging. So let's jump into the interview. And smack that subscribe button if you're enjoying the video so far. Alright, here we go. The first question was, since our squad mates are susceptible to a variety of conditions, what is the worst case scenario that can come from these? For instance, if a soldier is dealing with extreme levels of depression, what could happen to that squad mate as a result of this, and what might go into helping an extreme case versus a moderate one? Their response was, in cases where the character is able to manage themselves, and he means manage as in their condition isn't too bad yet, then the player's role is to support that character and try to put them in the best position to recover while still addressing their tactical and strategic goals. In cases where the issues are beyond the character's capacity to cope, then the player's goal is to encourage that character to willingly attend treatment, or order them into it as a last resort. The treatment process is a black box. The player will not act as a therapist, but it could take one or multiple sessions to treat a character, and the player will have to support the character during this process to maximize the chance of effectiveness. There may be some times where a character's mental injury is so severe that it precludes them from returning to combat, just like if they had a major physical injury, although these cases will be extremely rare. What we won't do is let players abuse their characters. If you push a character too far, they will transfer out of your squad. My next question, it seems like there's a wide spectrum of feelings the NPCs can harbor towards our character, including hatred or jealousy. Will there be any incentive to keeping these NPC characters as a part of our squad, despite their aggressive feelings towards our character? The obvious choice seems to be just to not use them going forward in the game, and to stick to NPCs that do like us. What motivation does the player have to keep trying to maintain a relationship that has gone south? The answer was, players will invest a lot of time and emotion as they follow and shape their characters' lives. This will make it hard to part with the character, but sometimes it may be out of a player's hands, if that character is killed, for example. If a player has been attentive and responsive to their characters, it is unlikely that there will be any irretrievable relationship issues. While there may be differences of opinions, major issues between the players and their characters is only likely to be possible if the players are actively seeking to antagonize their characters. Moving right along to Goose's next question. Is there a psychological component to the person we play as well? If a squad mate our character is close to dies in combat, does our character suffer from emotional turmoil from this? Are there bonuses when our character is in a good mood? And this is the response. Players take the role of the squadron leader themselves, not an avatar. So all emotions of this persona are those felt by the player themselves. Do these have an impact on game performance? Probably, but that's a bit beyond our design scope. This game does not assign any emotions or gameplay benefits to the player based on their own feelings, though. I've got a really bad feeling I won't be able to play this game around anyone, because if something emotional happens, like a squad mate dies or something, I might cry. Who knows? Who knows? Who knows? Maybe I'll surprise myself. I'm more manly than I thought. No, that doesn't sound right. I'll 100% cry. Next question, and my last one about squad relationships specifically. Since I noticed there's a recruitment tab, I imagine this means we will be constantly bringing new soldiers on board. Can squad mates develop strong bonds between one another? Or is it possible for soldiers to strongly dislike a teammate but love another? If yes, how would this play out if you take all three members along for a ground combat mission? In response, the devs said, yes, a variety of relationships can exist within the barracks, and these are constantly evolving. As a player brings in new recruits, the whole dynamic of the team can change. Characters who were previously happy may become jealous and resentful, or may finally find someone who gets them and starts to settle in. This system will provide continually evolving stories and problem-solving opportunities. This system sounds so dope. Can you imagine if they incorporated this in like a new Mass Effect? I don't know. Things I think about before I go to sleep. My next question, I love how you guys have worked with real-life combat vets on other projects, but I imagine this was a very challenging game to approach with the narrative being as sensitive as it is. I think this is such a cool way to approach mental health by allowing players to experience it in a game and develop some understanding of the list of traumas that can come from war. That being said, I imagine this is also a very tricky game to take on for this reason. So I'm curious as to what made you take on what I would consider a very daunting game. Are you still working with military vets on this project? I know, it's a long question, but here's their answer. We work closely with our veteran consultants to ensure that we continue to represent long-term consequences of conflict with dignity and respect. It is important to us to create awareness of these issues without traumatizing the players themselves. We don't want them to experience what it's like to be a soldier. We want players to try to understand and appreciate what some soldiers, and others suffering from mental health issues, might be dealing with on a daily basis. Hell yeah, that sounds dope. That wasn't part of the answer. That's just me saying the game sounds dope. You know, I'm probably gonna be the player that gets attached to a squad mate so much that I just never use them for missions anymore, so I don't risk losing them. So they're just gonna be trapped on my ship. So take that for being so likable.
Sucker!
Now the next questions are more about my concerns. The only thing I was concerned about after playing the demo was the combat. The environments look fairly plain at the moment, the combat felt more like a side activity. Are the combat missions a huge part of the experience, or is the main focus going to be building up and supporting your squad in between missions? They answered saying the environments will be rich, varied, and highly interactive, but Destiny's Sword is definitely less focused on the action and more on the character interaction. Action, interaction, it's not even funny. Our intended breakdown is approximately 70% engagement, both in the story and with the characters, and 30% action. The missions are how players gather resources and progress, but they are also key experiences that will shape the players' and characters' stories, so they are crucial to the core game experience. My following question, I was wondering about the combat gameplay itself. What kind of combat additions can we look forward to that were not in this demo? Is there a chance that we will get to control the squad more via some interactivity with the environment? Their response was Destiny's Sword is a strategy RPG. There will be a wide array of tactical options for the player, including character positioning and formations, equipment and ability selection, and decisions about how and when to interact with the environment. Destiny's Sword is not an open world action MMO. As such, players who are looking for that experience may not find it in our game. Our game is more about the choices the player makes than how fast they can click their mouse. That said, we believe combat will be challenging and fun, and will test the player's tactical and strategic skills. If players liked games like Final Fantasy, Darkest Dungeon, or Banner Saga, they'll probably really enjoy our combat system once it's fully implemented. My next question is something else I was a little unclear on. I'd love to know how Destiny's Sword works as an MMO. I read that there will be a guild hall available on player ships for players to hang out, as well as being available for player-driven events like parties. I also read that players will play an important part in achieving your own goals. Can you elaborate on how much we will be interacting with other players, and how we can affect or be affected by another player's help? In response, they said guild events will affect character emotion/recovery for all players who attend. For example, having a funeral for a lost character will help a player's characters to gain closure and recover more quickly. Any player who attends the event, as in enters the guild hall while the event is active, will also see their characters gain that benefit, as well as the chance that characters will be able to interact with other players' characters at that event. So it sounds like your squad mates can even intermingle with other people's squad mates. I'm so interested to see how this all plays out. As a guild, players will have to work together to heal each other's wounded and repair each other's damaged equipment. Players will also have to work together to unlock and progress their communal technology. Finally, there will be various game modes that allow players to play together, including cooperative boss battles and a quest mode that allows groups of players to explore the game world while completing challenging missions and crafting their own narratives, like a multiplayer choose-your-own-adventure. Poppy Goose likes what he's hearing. My next question was, does the Insight engine have any effect on player-to-player interaction, or is this just based purely around our relationships with our NPC squads? The response was not strictly, but interactions between characters can draw players in. For instance, if one player's character loses a watch at a party event, and another player's character finds it, it will be up to both players to bridge those types of stories and resolve these issues. I'm just gonna tell my squad mate to keep it. We need all the resources we can get. Peace. I'm just kidding. Unless it's a Gucci watch. In that case, no, we haven't found it, sorry. The final question. What might a typical day look like for a player in Destiny's Sword, from the point we log in to the point we log off, just so we can get a better understanding of what game progression looks like in Destiny's Sword? The answer was this is still in early development, so this may evolve substantially during beta testing, but we see players spending about 30% of their time in combat, maybe helping to take on a boss that another squad discovered overnight, helping out the war effort by attacking a key objective, or questing with a group of friends. This proportion is not hard and fast. Some players will prefer the combat gameplay, while others will prefer the social and character interaction. Every day will be different. Some days a player may devote their entire combat time to getting the highest score possible in a given war in an attempt to top the leaderboard, or to make sure the faction secures their objective for the day. Outside of combat, players will be able to train their medical and engineering characters by helping to heal the guild's wounded and repair their damaged equipment, or craft new items like mechs. They will also be able to use these resources they have gained from their combat missions to help develop their guild support ship, unlocking new skills and new equipment to use in future battles. Players can also spend time interacting with their squads, building relationships with their characters, and dealing with the consequences of their characters' experiences and the player's decisions in previous engagements. Also, each day, a few characters in a player squad might experience certain life events, like going to the bar last night, or getting a puppy, or getting a message from home that a family member is ill, etc. It's up to each player to decide how much they want to follow and or shape their character's experiences from these events. Some players may not want to participate in these emergent narratives, while other players may want to be way more involved in their characters' lives. And individual characters may react better or worse to this level of involvement or neglect depending on their personalities.
Alright, that's the end of the interview questions. This game is sounding really dope. As can be expected, it felt like it has a long way to go in some regards, but in others, it looks like development has been going very well. This guy will be buying his waterproof makeup. I don't wear makeup, but if I did, I would. You guys should buy waterproof.
I wanted to encompass kind of what this game is for you guys, because it's one thing when a new MMO enters the scene, it's like so rare nowadays, but it's a whole new thing when they plan on innovating in this space. Now, if you want to follow the game's development a little more closely, you can actually take part in the pre-alpha demo that they're launching on Steam on November 11th, which is actually Remembrance Day, as I'm sure all of you know. So on November 11th, it should just be a couple of days away from when I drop this, but November 11th, check this thing out, and you'll see what I mean about how this game feels very different from every other MMO that you've played. I guarantee it. It's pretty wicked, man. Alright guys, hit that subscribe button, stick around with me. I've got another big video coming out really soon. I've been working on it for like the last 3 weeks, so yeah, hit that subscribe button. I'm trying to like prepare videos for you guys to release before the Steam sale season, so you guys are a bit more educated on some MMOs and whether or not you should look out for a sale on them when the Steam sale drops. Alright guys, thank you so much for watching. Hit that subscribe and like button, and take care.